Well, hi everyone, and welcome to this week's Feeling Smarter. Today I'm joined in person with Tim. G'day, Tim. How are you?
Yeah, going pretty well, Aaron. How are you doing?
Not too bad, thank you. Well, it's hard to imagine that we are in December already. Uh, and an interesting note or reminder from the ATO came out recently around the fact that you shouldn't be using your SMSF for bills or presents this Christmas, which gave us the idea of talking about some of these key requirements that we need to make sure that an SMSF complies with when it comes to utilising SMSF monies.
Yeah, and interesting concept to say don't use your SMSF bills for bills or presents this Christmas or any other day, right?
Yeah. Unless you're 65,
Yeah, well, unless you've
or you've
satisfied
met some other condition of release, which
with
is obviously the path that we're heading down, right?
yeah, correct. And I think that's the key issue is that what the ATO are wanting to highlight because year in year out, and we highlight this quite regularly, the number one breach from an SMSF point of view since breaches have been reported has been the provision of financial assistance to members or relatives. And it's often the issue associated with it is the ease of access to
Mm-hmm.
the funds via the cash management account or whatever it might be. And so often people will go, oh, I'll just use this quickly, and I'll just use this to get through this event or
Yep.
whatever, and then I'll pay it back. But the moment you start thinking about it, it's the moment you're going to draw problems for yourselves, and definitely the moment you do it, doesn't matter how much it is, you've got a problem.
Yeah, and that's the critical issue here is that once it's withdrawn, it's withdrawn. It's
Yeah.
it's not contrad back, so to speak. In essence, once you have illegally accessed money, it therefore becomes accessible in the hands of that individual,
Mm.
and therefore you fall foul of the fact that you, in a lot of instances here, unless you've satisfied the preservation rules or including your 65 or older, as we touched on, we've now got ourselves into a situation whereby we have created compliance breaches in the fund as well. So we've got a taxing position to the individual
Yeah.
that has no concessions to it. Tax as ordinary income, assessed at marginal rates, but we then have ultimately penalties that will apply to the trustees of the fund because of the fact that we have provided financial assistance here.
Yeah, and those penalties. I mean, you've got your civil penalties and that for the most extreme cases, but you've actually got your admin penalties,
Mm-hmm.
and from an admin penalty point, the financial assistance I think is one of those 60 penalty point events, which makes it at the worst end of the admin penalty scale, and that's a liability that has to be met by the trustee in their individual capacity, not in the super fund capacity. So it becomes a bit of a catch-22 because if you've used money, if you've used fund resources
Mm-hmm.
for personal purposes, and then you're penalised, and you then have another personal liability, don't get caught in a circle.
Yeah,
It's one of those things, and we make a bit of light of it there, but this is the issue: is that people are jumping into their super, or people are utilising their super because they don't have the financial means, and you can just get yourself stuck in this vicious cycle of using it, repaying it, using it, repaying it.
Mm.
But every time you do it, one, it's an illegal access, and two, it's a contribution.
Yeah. So the other, I guess, side to the equation here, though, Tim, is there are some legal ways ultimately where that assistance can be provided, not to the member, but potentially to a related party.
Yeah, and I think this is where it's a troubled piece of legislation to me in the sense that the in-house asset definition is a long-standing definition, and because loans to members and loans to other entities were something that prior to sort of the CIS Act,
Mm-hmm.
realistically, so under the sort of pre-1994, 93, 94 type time, the rules were a little bit different back there, and so it was more common for loans to your company and all those sorts of things
Mm-hmm.
to be around. And so when the in-house asset rules were introduced, the old rules sort of started to define who a related party was,
Yep.
and therefore who it was acceptable to have a loan to, and that is in effect largely a company or a trust,
Mhm.
as such, and that loan is restricted to 5% of the value of the fund assets, right? So under the
Yep.
in-house asset rules, well, the total in-house asset is restricted to the 5%. So the loan maximum is going to be 5%, and the purpose of the loan must be for, obviously, you see something good in that business that's going to produce great income for the business or whatever. It can't be to then use that loan to provide financial assistance to the member or relative through the company or trust.
Yeah, so there's no look through. Well, sorry, I should say the other way.
Yeah.
The ATO will look through
Yeah.
some sort of arrangement like that, where ultimately the entity is being used to facilitate finance to the member.
That's right. That's right. So if the legitimate reason for the loan is for operational purposes, for growth, develop, research, development, whatever it might be, just the business development itself, then generally nothing to see here,
Mm-hmm.
as long as the loan documentation is all arm's length and
Yep.
and appropriate in that regard.
And that's what I was about to say. So documentation then becomes absolutely key. I know we've got the in-house asset loan documentation on the Smarter SMSF site, but you need to ensure that you're benchmarking the rate that you're ultimately providing and ensuring that you're upholding the conditions of repayment of that as well. Because if you end up sort of loaning the money across, but you're not enforcing a loan like you would with a lender would otherwise ordinarily do, then you are putting the fund into a precarious position as well.
Absolutely. And again, by virtue of saying, well, then you're providing financial assistance to a related party, which can lead down all sorts of paths.
Absolutely. Well, any other sort of final things that you wanted to add there? I guess, again, we haven't got our Santa hats on, but it is a good reminder. And those examples that we see from the ATO, a bit kind of fun and tongue-in-cheek, but there is a very clear message that sits under that. And ultimately, the ATO does say, and we would rightly say as well, that if you have circumstances where the horse may have sort of bolted, you need to try and corral that back. And there are things like the disclosure service as an example there that would not get you out of jail necessarily, but play some role in you trying to remedy the situation and ultimately trying to put the fund back on the right track.
Yeah, and highlighting that jail was probably the wrong choice of words there, because it's highly unlikely that that's the end result. However, there is a scope for penalties, and so coming back to your earlier point, if you've met a condition of release and that gives you nil cashing restriction, you've got access to your money, that's great.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, indeed. If not, then you really need to look at what you've done and work out whether you need to engage with the regulator or not.
And ultimately remembering that these responsibilities have been signed off by all these individuals as part of the trustee declaration obligations. So the ATO's regulator here is going to be enforcing the full force of the law on the basis that you understood what you're getting into in your responsibilities as a fund trustee.
100%.
Well, that's it, Tim, for today. Thank you once again. We look forward to seeing you next week. Bye for now.
Bye all.